aspects and all. Okay, now recording's in progress. I'd like to again welcome everybody on behalf of the Boys Club. And this is the second part of our six-part series entitled Family Academy. What we try to do at these academies is really break down each school choice so you can have a better understanding. And this is just a teaser in many ways because there's so much that we can't cover in the short amount of time. So this is kind of setting the stage for what we plan to do in the summer, leading into the fall, and throughout your academic year, your child's academic year, starting in September of 24-25 for high school placement. There are a myriad of different choices available to you. Last week, we talked in general terms about the public school system, basically the public schools as a whole. And we had Christian Barnes and Laura Simgod from New Schools. I'm trying to remember NYC Academic Solutions and Inside Schools. So we wanted to break a certain type of school choice that I'm very excited about and is so relevant in today's world, especially post-COVID, which is CTE schools, career technology and education schools. What are they? What's the difference admission process for these schools? We wanted to touch on the art schools, but we may not get to that today, and we'll do something separate for that if we don't. We may touch it from the surface level. Christian can help out with that, but really want to delve deep into the CTE schools. So with that, I'd like to introduce, just getting my little notes here. If you could excuse me a second. I'd like to invite and introduce Mr. Omari Gay, our Senior Director of Programs, Approval, and Quality for Career and Technology Education, Office of Student Pathways. And also, again, Mr. Christian Barnes, specialized high school admissions and part of the leader of the high school admissions team, Office of Student Enrollment for the New York City Board of Ed, or the New York City Department of Education. So these are two really experienced individuals that are really going to share important information. So with that, we also have in the audience, or part of our leading senior staff, Mr. Ron Britt, who is in charge of programming for the Boys Club of New York and also leads the Abbey Clubhouse, and also Dionis Jimenez, who's the Director of Education at the Abbey Clubhouse. So we were here to share information. We're going to be sharing this video, and we're going to have, like I said, 4 more following next Wednesday and the following Wednesday after that. So please save these videos, keep them as reference point, and understand that we're going to continue the conversation in the summer and into the fall. So with that, I'll start with Mr. Gay, who will speak a little bit about CTE schools and what are they? I mean.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me here. I'm definitely excited about this. I'm going to spend some time really just talking about what CTE is, and sort of the vision of it for all of our high school students. I'm going to take a moment to just share my screen. There we go. All righty. So again, my name is Omari Gay. I'm the Senior Director for Career and Technical Education for Program Approval and Quality. And so my role is really just overseeing all CTE high schools in New York City, making sure that we are developing high quality CTE programs within each of our CTE schools, getting them approved by the state, maintaining approval with the state, and again, also just making sure that we maintain high quality CTE or career and technical education for all of our students. So I want to begin with sort of like I was hoping to do sort of a trivia, but I'll do it anyway because the trivia that I'm going to speak to sort of helps to understand where CTE was and where it is, and giving us a clear understanding of what a CTE high school is. So my first question will be, how many specialized high schools are there in New York City public schools? And as you guys may know, our current chancellor is sort of rebranding the New York City Department of Education. And so we are known now as New York City Public Schools. And so there are what we call specialized high schools. And just for clarity's sake, just understanding what specialized high schools are. But we do have a number of specialized high schools in New York City. They are a selective group of public schools for students who excel both artistically and academically. And these schools have a separate sort of optional admissions process from the general high school admissions process. So the question is, how many specialized high schools are there in New York City public schools? And the answer is, I'm not sure if we have folks in the audience, but I'll sort of go through the answers. There are 9 total in New York City. The next question is, how many specialized high schools in New York City public schools are actually CTE schools? And I share this because I know that there are folks who have sort of an older thought of CTE in comparison to vocational high schools. And so I want to start to give you an idea of the sort of new vision of CTE high schools. And so there are 9 specialized high schools in New York City. How many are CTE schools? Almost half of them are. So 4 of our 9 specialized high schools in New York City are actually CTE schools. And so here's a list of all of the 9 specialized high schools, and the highlighted ones are our CTE schools. So Brooklyn Tech, LaGuardia High School for Math, Science, and Engineering at City College, and also Staten Island Technical High School. These are our CTE schools within our specialized high schools. How many public high schools are there in New York City in total? I know I've seen numbers that have been thrown around there, but there are currently 533 public high schools in New York City. And there are, trust me when I say there are reasons why I'm asking these questions, but how many public high schools are there in the United States? Total in the United States of America, there are well over 24,000 high schools, public high schools, closer to 25,000 at this time. I say that to say then, how many New York City CTE schools are ranked in the top 100 schools of New York City? So of the 533 high schools, how many are ranked in the top 100? 24 of our CTE schools are ranked in the top 100 schools of New York City. Now, I asked about how many high schools there are in the United States. So the next question is, how many New York City CTE schools are ranked in the top 100 schools within the United States? So of the almost 25,000 high schools in the United States, how many of our New York City CTE schools are ranked in the top 100? And there are 4 of them. And to give you an idea, and this is from US News, the US News and World Report, High School of Math, Science, and Engineering at City College in New York is ranked number 36 in the nation with a 99% graduation rate, 100 college readiness rating, with over 550 students enrolled in that school. Staten Island Technical High School is ranked number 50 in the nation with a 100% graduation rate and a 99.1 college readiness rating, with over 1,300 students, almost 1,400 students enrolled in that school. Brooklyn Technical High School is ranked number 67 in the nation with a 96% graduation rate, a 95% or a 95.2 college readiness rating, with almost 6,000 students enrolled in this school. Townsend Harris High School is ranked 78 in the nation, again with a 100% graduation rate, about a 97.6% college readiness rating, and over 1,300 students that are enrolled in this school. I threw in as a bonus here because they were not far off from the top 100. They were ranked 137. A Columbia Secondary School is also, again, ranked 137th in the nation with a 98% graduation rate, 78.7% college readiness rating, with almost 400 students enrolled in this school. I'm going to narrow this down so that you understand why I'm even asking these questions. My next question is, how many CTE schools and schools with CTE programs are there in total in New York City? And currently, there are 131 schools that are CTE schools or schools with CTE programs in New York City. You have a ton of options here that we'll talk through. How many CTE programs are there in New York City public schools? So we know how many schools there are. How many CTE programs in total are there? And there are exactly 300 CTE programs throughout the 5 boroughs of New York City. So I share that with you for one, because I know that there are a number of folks who feel like this is a small portion of New York City. This is actually a major part of what we're doing in New York City public schools. I also share this because I know I attend many high school fairs and get a chance to interact and do a lot of family and parent engagement around high school choices. And I know that many of our parents associate CTE with the older model of vocational high schools. And so I've had parents come up to me and say as much, my child is not dumb, or my child does really well academically. So I don't know if CTE is for them. And the understanding that CTE and the vocation, when you compare it to the old vocational model, vocational high schools in the past were developed initially for students who we used to talk about students who work well with their hands, or students who may not do as well academically. Well, the vision for CTE today is very different. In fact, the vision for CTE today is probably going to be something used for every high school in New York City. And so when we look at this and we look at this current administration, our current Chancellor, David Banks, his vision along with the mayor, they have a very clear vision as to what they want us to understand CTE to be. The vision really, I gotta say, seamlessly flows into the work of CTE, where the goal is that every student leaves high school on the pathway to a rewarding career and long-term economic security. And our chancellor really makes sure he draws a clear line between a student that graduates from high school and then what their life will be like post-high school, that they are ready for college, that they are ready for a career in any career choice in any industry and sector that they choose. And so he clearly draws that connection. The model has been around real skills, strong plan, and a head start. And you're going to see this a lot with this administration, but our chancellor and the mayor both have talked about career-connected learning and career and technical education as the North Star of this administration, and that bright starts and bold futures are being the major core change that we're going to see. The bold futures of our high school students includes learning real skills, graduating from high school with strong plans, and stepping into a post-secondary life with a head start. And we'll talk about what each of those really mean. When we discuss real skills, part of the development of our students' long-term economic security, that you hear that a lot, begins with teaching students foundational skills that they'll need to succeed in the 21st century. Digital skills, financial literacy, computational thinking, computer science skills, and career readiness, foundational skills. These are all of the things that you're going to see that's building real skills for our students. We talk a lot about strong plans, and so just understanding that the strong plan is making sure that students are able to do career exploration and really understand, like, I know what it takes to create a resume, or I have developed interviewing skills, or I know once I know how to search for a job. Once I get the job, I know exactly what I need to do to maintain a job. It's really looking at as well a personalized plan that reflects their personal goals, their educational goals, their career interests. Students should have and will have within CTE early and regular advising touch points so that school counselors are in touch with all of our students and really helping them to kind of see what steps it will take for their career choice. I think CTE does two things. One is students who are interested in a career pathway, it really further develops that interest, or it tells them before they leave high school that they're really not interested in that. And so they're not going to waste money in college to determine that this is not an interest of theirs. They can determine that right now. Head Start, in addition to the skills that they develop, students are leaving with college credit as well as industry credentials. They're walking out of high school with college credit and industry credentials. And that's a big part of career and technical education. I touched on these, but when you look at career and technical education, you're going to see that again, a lot of the instruction is really to build real world experiences in the classroom. So a CT student will take courses and be able to look at industry in their classroom. In many cases, their classroom will look just like the workplace. And that's very intentional so that students are truly prepared for the workforce. They're also prepared with 21st century skills, looking to make sure that there are things, just understanding what professionalism is. What does it mean to dress professional? What does it mean to speak professionally? All of the things that we feel like are skills that in many cases are taken for granted, we make sure that this is learned in the classroom. Work-based learning opportunities is a huge part of career and technical education. So in addition to learning it in the classroom, what the students learn in the classroom, we then give them an opportunity to now see this in the workplace through different work-based learning opportunities and the ability eventually to also receive a paid internship where what they learned in the classroom, they're able to practice in a paid internship that also counts as credit towards their graduation. I want to give you sort of step back and give you sort of a bigger view of what we're looking at. When we look at our federal grants and that's used for funding career and technical education, we're funded through the Perkins 5 grant. And some of the priorities, there are 5 specific priorities with New York City that revolve around the Perkins 5 grant, and we call it our Perkins priorities. And so one that we're looking at labor market being aligned to career pathways. And specifically what that means is that we're not setting up students to learn the skills and to get experience in a pathway that leads to potentially a dead-end job where there's no growth or where they're not able to make livable wages. The second is really looking at post-high school placement and being able to determine what's happening when our students graduate from a CTE school. When they graduate, are they going straight on to college, either a 2-year or 4-year, or potentially another post-secondary institution? Are they going straight into the workforce? Or what we're seeing more times than not, are they doing both? But really taking a strong look at how that looks. What does that look like when a student graduates from a CTE school? And then we're looking at an indicator around work-based learning. And so again, making sure that students are getting real world experiences. So for example, we have a school on Governor's Island, one of our schools where they've started the first professional divers program. Classroom takes place on a boat. Students do actually go diving. Students are part of this, this is hands-on real life experiences. Our auto programs, right? Students are truly working with both electric vehicles as well as our traditional cars. Our culinary arts programs, the classroom is the kitchen, right? So just making sure that this is real world experiences for all of our CTE students. When we look at personalized college and career advising, being sure that our school counselors are involved in all of the advising around career and technical education, around career exploration, around looking at the career as their future or not, as far as, or in addition to that, looking at what type of education is needed for that career pathway and making sure that students know the steps to take, the schools to go to, the majors that they need to sort of study in to make sure that they are fulfilling the needs for that career pathway. And then lastly, looking at recruitment, retention, and training of CTE teachers. You should know that for every CTE course, for every class, that is taught under CTE, every teacher is vetted to ensure that they are the appropriately certified CTE teacher to teach each specific course. This is something that's done for every approved program in career and technical education so that we know we have the right people in front of our students. So understanding the requirements when a student from middle school comes into high school, what should they expect? Well, the CTE requirements for them are that they're going to receive a minimum of 7 credits for studying CTE, and we'll see how that connects to the larger picture of a high school graduate. Excuse me. We, as I mentioned, have a qualified and appropriately certified teacher for every single course. You'll see that many of our teachers are coming straight from the industry into the classroom. And so we want to make sure that not only do they have the real world work experience, but that they are also prepared to teach in the classroom and give that knowledge to our students. There are aligned technical assessments for every CTE program so that when a student completes their courses, these technical assessments will show whether or not they're able to master what they've learned. Every single student must receive work-based learning opportunities, and this includes paid internships. And then articulation agreements with post-secondary institutions. Every single CTE program must have an articulation agreement with a post-secondary institution where there are clear benefits to the student, which means a number of credits that students walk into the college with, maybe tuition reimbursement, and think of all of the different things that are, I've seen some where books are paid for, et cetera, but there are benefits to that student as a result of that articulation agreement. And then lastly, the program is evaluated by what we consider to be the experts of the field. And so we bring in what we consider post-secondary and industry partners. So our college partners, our industry partners who will evaluate every part of a CTE program and then make their recommendations. Making sure that we're up to industry trends, making sure that we are not outdated in what we're teaching our students. They're also supporting in the work-based learning opportunities, and as well, postgraduate, also looking at an employment opportunity for our students once they graduate from high school and or college. And so this is all a part of the requirements that are a part of a CTE high school. This is sort of a quick shot, but just want you to know that there are a myriad of opportunities that we would consider to be work-based learning. Anything from career fairs and guest speakers that are brought to the school, to job shadowing, mentorships, and of course, most people are aware of paid internships, but there are also just a number of other different opportunities are available for every CTE student so that they are receiving, again, these real world experiences. When a student graduates, they are able to graduate with what we consider a CTE technical endorsement. Their high school diploma is endorsed and it receives a CTE technical endorsement. I'll show you in addition to this, so that you understand the requirements of that for a middle school student who's becoming a high school student. To graduate high school, there's a minimum of 44 credits that a student must complete successfully. When you're looking at a CTE technical endorsed diploma, they must pass 4 of the required Regents exams. There are 5 that are necessary, but when you are a CTE student, you're passing 4 of the required Regents exams. That's ELA, Math, Science, and Social Studies. And then you must have completed all of the credits that are part of the CTE program, as well as the technical assessments and employability profile, which says that a teacher has spoken with you along the way, every step of the way, to assess your skills, to assess where you are in your progress within that CTE program. How does that connect to just general high school? Well, understand that for a high school graduate, as I mentioned earlier, students must pass 5 Regents exams to graduate from high school. A CTE student does what we consider a 4+1 pathway. And so they're able to take 4 and then use their CTE completion as the 5th. Then you must complete your 44 credits of high school, right? So 8 credits in English, 8 credits in social studies, 6 credits in math, 6 credits in science, 2 world language credits, 4 credits in gym, 1 credit for health education, 2 credits in art, and then required for high school students are the 7 elective credits. So remember, CTE fulfills all of your elective credits. Many of our CTE schools have more than 7 credits, but I want you to know that this is a portion of your high school graduation that CTE will fulfill for every student. Quick understanding of how we support you. This is my team here. So I oversee a team of what we consider program and pathway coaches. Every borough has a dedicated program and pathways coach who will assist them in the development of their CTE program and also in making sure that the program gets approved by the state and then maintains approval with the New York State Education Department. Here are the contacts of our folks. I'll say that Jade Sanchez, who oversees the Bronx and Staten Island for me. If you're a school that's looking to reach out or a parent that's looking to reach out and you're in the Bronx or Staten Island, Jade is on maternity leave. And so Kendall Samlal, who's my director of program approval, has also stepped in to look at the Bronx and support the Bronx and Staten Island. But you'll see the rest of my team here and the boroughs that they support. Remember, we make sure that there is a point person for every borough to make sure that the support is there. That's CT in a nutshell. I do want to make sure that if you have any questions, I can definitely answer it, but I wanted to give you an overview of what it looks like, the purpose of it, making sure that every student that graduates through a CTE program, they're receiving financial literacy, they're learning how to invest, they're learning how to save, but they're also learning how to develop their career exploration. They're receiving real world experiences and different experiences that they choose. There are over 300 CTE programs throughout New York City to choose from, and to make sure that we're looking at something that's sort of a passion of yours and an interest of your future career pathways. So if there are any questions, please feel free to ask those questions.
Omari, I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
So I wrote a lot. I feel like I wrote, but I feel some of them you answered. I hear the term P-Tech. Is that a CT? Is that a different term? I mean, is P-Tech different than a CTE school, or what's the difference of those types of schools? Because I've seen those types of schools before.
So we do have several. So P-Tech and CTE are different. We do have P-Tech schools who are also CTE schools. P-Tech, many of our P-Tech schools are sort of a 9 to 14 model where students will graduate with an associate's degree.
I see.
But there are several that are connected to CTE as well.
Okay. Another question, unless someone jumps in, but the admissions process, because they have all these career tracks. Is the admission process a little bit more personal, or is it still just kind of add them? But if say you were interested in electrician and your uncle was an electrician and you kind of like worked with him a little bit, does that writing that in an essay or having them write a recommendation, does that help in any way, or that's not really used in the admissions process?
It doesn't. It's not used in the admissions process. Remember that like for New York City public schools, schools don't pick the students that get into them. It still is a mostly centralized computerized process. So that's not going to do anything to help the student. And then based on the admissions method is how they're going to get in. Which I don't think many CTE schools are even assessment screened with assessment. Yeah.
with the exception of like our specialized high schools, right? I think that we just make sure that students take a look at what's available. So for example, I'm a student that, I'll give you a very specific example, a family, two brothers, one brother was very much into like robotics. The other brother loves culinary arts. In that same district in the Bronx, one brother would end up going because of choice, just choosing a school that has what he's interested in, would go to the High School of Computers and Technology because they do have a computer technology / robotics program. The other brother might go to Bronxdale High School in the Bronx because they have a culinary arts program, right? So part of the decision making when looking at entering a high school is just looking at where your interests lie and who has what you're interested in.
So similar to public school, you can apply to the same CTE school because you're applying to different programs. Like say if CTE has 5 different career tracks, you can apply and you're interested in all 5, you can apply to the same high school, just picking the 5 different tracks.
Each of the
If they have different admissions programs at the school, yes. And then really quickly, the specialized high schools are not screened with assessment. That's like a specific admissions method. They just fall under the SHSAT, which is a different admissions method. I know it's a little confusing. Screen with assessment means that they'll use your grades and they have a school specific assessment. And then the SHSAT is like a different pathway. It doesn't work off the application. But what Omari is speaking to is some of CTE schools have for their different, let's say, tracks, they have different admissions programs within those schools. But he's talking about different curriculum offerings that are available at those high schools. Not for it's different school by school, and that's why it's so important to look at the directory, which I'll talk about over a few slides. But at some schools, they have multiple CTE offerings, which are not different, right? You'll apply to one admissions program, and then they'll work with the student on that interest once they're inside that school on CTE tracks. And at other ones, each CTE track is its own admissions program. So those can be a little bit different via the school, and that is based on how the school wants to use it.
Okay. And I know I just wrote stuff, but art schools, you mentioned CTE and then you mentioned LaGuardia. And I know we wanted to touch on the arts. What designates that as a CTE outside of it being a specialized school in comparison to a Frank Sinatra school that's also pretty intense and they have some great programs, or another arts audition, they talented and gifted that also you have to audition to get in many ways. Why are, like what differentiates outside of being a specialized school?
Yeah, and so you'll see that Frank Sinatra, which also had a CT program, LaGuardia.
Oh, okay.
So again, what you'll see the difference in what we consider when we're considering labor market alignment. And so I have currently a program that has a dance program,
right,
for which I need to develop so that it leads to an industry and a career pathway where the student that graduates and goes into whatever that dance pathway is can step into a job where they're making livable wages, right? And so I have to be clear that it may not just be sort of modern dance, but that there's more to the career pathway in dance. So for LaGuardia, some of the programs there would include things like media. And so looking at it, whether it's web design, graphic arts, marketing, graphic design, and really being very specific as to career pathways that a student will graduate with and what exactly they're going to learn while they're there. So there's not just the arts, but being very specific about courses that the students are going to complete when they graduate from a CT program there, and then where they can move on to when they are going into post-secondary education or career pathways.
So like dance therapy, because there are people that use their, dance as therapy that could be part of a CTE program where dance is leading towards, make some money while you're trying to be a dancer. Okay. You said something about endorsement. Does endorsement equate to a certification? Like if you were HVAC, like if you studied HVAC and you get an endorsement, is that like you actually graduate that you're certified to be working HVAC?
So it's two things. So when I talked about industry credentials, that's what you're talking about. And many of our students do graduate with an HVAC industry credential. right? Or our OSHA 10 credential, or their food handlers certificate as an industry credential. When we talk about CT endorsement, you look at things like we have our Regents diploma, so you have to complete your 5 Regents exams. You have advanced Regents diplomas, and then you have a CTE, and along those lines, you also have a CTE endorsed diploma, which says that this student is completing what we would consider a 4+1 pathway. So they're not doing 5 Regents exams. They're going to do the 4 core required. And then that 5th one is because they completed their CTE course sequence and the technical assessments that are associated with that. It would take some time, but you can get into like the weight of a diploma that's received by a high school student. That also plays a factor in CTE endorsement. But when I say that, that specifically is what I mean by a CTE endorsed diploma.
Okay. Is there a place to look at all these careers outside of my schools that kind of list like a list of all these careers, and next to it is the type of high schools that, I mean, I guess it would be my schools, but is there something else that people can identify, careers with schools a little easier?
And I'm glad you asked that, because it's been like my brainchild for a while now, but I would say by midsummer, so I'm going to say by mid-July, almost the end of July, we will have completed our CTE.NYC website. And in that website, you'll see all of the career clusters, every single high school that has a CT program in it in New York City, and what cluster they've chosen. And then you'll see sort of the career pathways, the technical assessments, their articulation agreements to colleges, like all of that all in one site. And so you'll see that there. So that'll be in our CTE.NYC website.
Oh, great. Because there's a lot to absorb.
Sure.
I was going to mention it's been very, very thorough, and I've definitely learned a lot just from the presentation so far. And we've had many members go through CTE schools and go on to move. I do plan on using this and maybe pieces of this to show our members as well in the future in our one-on-ones or when we're teaching the classes. Could you talk a little bit about, I guess, a sample schedule or a day in the life of a CTE school compared to maybe a public high school, so I can touch on that?
Sure. So what it might look like, and I'm glad you asked that. So one of the things that I'm pushing very much so in our CT, all of our CT schools, is what we consider academic integration. And so, for example, I have a school that is, their CT program is architecture. And so a student might go to their Algebra 1 class, their English class, their history class, and then their Architecture 1 class. And then in the afternoon would go to their internship for architecture at an architectural firm. But within their courses, because we're focused on academic integration, not only is that student taking Architecture 1, but possibly in, let's say, Algebra 1, that Algebra 1 teacher is also talking about what they are learning in their architecture class as well. And the same thing for the architecture teacher, talking about what's being learned in Algebra 1, so that students can see the connection and never have to say, when in life am I ever going to see this again, right? Like, this is answered right there in the classroom.
Yeah, that's
And just to add on to what Omari's saying there, it's
There's
really
a
that
question there.
many times, and we get this with our audition programs as well, like Frank Sinatra and LaGuardia, families will be under the mistaken impression that there is somehow a trade-off of academics to these like career pathways that exist at these schools. That is not correct, right? All of these high schools have figured out ways to have their special program offerings and at the same time working on those graduation requirements. So like Omari is talking about, it's both making sure that they're still getting like that New York City public school, high school education, and blending, those core classes that they're already going to take and need to graduate high school. How do we blend the material so that it doesn't feel like here is the quote unquote normal instruction and then separately special instruction? how do we blend the tasks that fall within both of those, right? And we already see this in other educational pathways where like sometimes in math you will learn things that is helpful towards like English literacy, right? Or in, you know, US history, things like that. You'll discuss like how to do a thematic based essay, and then in English at the same time they'll discuss how to read like a specific document, uh,
Right.
a secondary resource versus primary resource, and write about it. We already see how the four core courses blend. Now we are adding in how do we also blend like a dance or an architecture or a culinary arts and make what you are learning in those core classes culturally relevant to those other pathways that you're learning in the other courses. Let me know if I was off there at all, Amari.
No,
Just admissions wise, we've learned about this from the schools as well.
spot on exactly in what we're doing. And I just wanted to show this so that to sort of reiterate what you just said, part of the 44 credits that are required for a high school graduate are the 7 elective credits. And so CTE would end up taking at minimum those 7 credits there so that this isn't replacing what's required. This is part of what's required for a high school graduate.
Yep. It's already part of that planning. And when if you do go to like an open house for Frank Sinatra or LaGuardia, they usually do like a art symposium over the summer, but they have these discussions as well. And that's why, especially for LaGuardia, they don't have 11th grade admissions, right? Frank Sinatra also doesn't have 11th grade admissions, and it's very difficult transferring in at that 11th grade year because they start you on that track so you are ready to move into the workforce by the time you graduate. And because they have that sort of track, they can tell you what you will expect to take ninth grade versus 10th grade versus 11th grade versus 12th grade in each of those disciplines over the arts, right? Which can be anything from like, you know, visual or performing arts all the way up to like technical theater and working on like film crews, right? They plan based on what is going on in the industry right now, how to properly prepare you. So right out of high school, you can enter that work field, and so that they can prepare you, you know, whether you are, instead of going into the workforce, going into college at those same programs that are going to expect you to have that industry knowledge.
Right.
Are there other parts to CTE schools in terms of recreation, like sports and competition and clubs? You know, is it strictly, you know, technical, or do they have, you know, parts and elements of the school community?
Right. So I'll say that, for example, I spoke about High School of Computers and Technology earlier. They're in the Bronx in District 11. Every year, that team of students actually travels into these yearly robotics competitions, and so the students take part in that. There are things like Skills USA, which are many of our students throughout different sectors and within CTE schools are competing throughout the country with these different areas. And then you look at schools like we have like business or sports schools where so they understand clearly like the connection between students who are very sports focused, but helping them to kind of understand that the percentage of students who say they want to make it to the NBA and make it to the NBA is very small. However, you still have a career pathway in sports, and it could be physical therapy, it could be sports management, it could, you know, those type of things. And so we make those connections there as well.
Okay. What school is that's focused on sports? What is it called?
It's called the Business of Sports School.
And what borough is it in?
Business of Sports School is, I'll look it up for you right now. It's in Manhattan. It's in District 2 in Manhattan. And they have both an entrepreneurship and a business administration program there.
Okay.
But so I was able to pull up the My Schools page for it, and I don't want to spend like too much going on the slides for the directory, but like when you're looking at these programs, like you can go online, you can see what the overview is of the program, their performance statistics. You can also see like what types of activities they have there. But I also always recommend doing a jump off from here onto the actual website page, because a lot of times it's very difficult for them to have, you know, those activities and clubs very specifically up to date on the My Schools directory, because we update that every June, but they can update their, you know, website every single day of the week. So they have like more options here, what you can look into: scholarships, academics, internships, their CTE business program, their academic sequence. You can learn a lot more about that and see more like student links and things like that. So that is like always helpful. And even to what you were asking before, right? Computers and technology. Sorry. Right. I was able to pull up that one and I can see those activities and clubs because again, it's not a trade-off, right? Like these schools, when they have students there that are interested in these extracurriculars, these clubs, these sports, they find ways to make it happen, right? Here are the PSAL offerings here, but if this school doesn't have a PSAL offering that a student, wants, they can reach out to the staff at the school and the school may work with another school very close in the area to still allow them to take part in PSAL offerings, right? And that's not something that's intrinsic to the admissions process. It's not something that people always know about it, but it is another one of those things that I try to explain to families. You need to start working on getting your student to independently think about what they want to do, right? Because those offerings aren't just going to happen from a parent at home speaking for a child. The student is also going to need to step up and ask about those resources that are available because they're the ones who are at that school level.
Is there a CTE fair coming up in the fall? I remember going to one, I think at Thomas Edison or sometime, but are they planning to do a CTE fair?
I think the fairs that we have passed,
Right.
but I can definitely look at, I know that different schools individually have sort of collaborated to kind of do some events together. And I can definitely sort of share that information with you. I can look that up and share that.
Okay.
Yeah, last year they had virtual fairs and some of their 2022 virtual fairs are still online, right? And like I always bring up, and even right now, right, we're getting questions from families asking about this fall, and I say, it's still helpful to look at things from previous years, right? So like at CTE.NYC, right, they have their virtual high school fairs. Yes, it is from a prior year, but there's still a lot of really great information that's on there. And I think like, yes, take it with a grain of salt. There may be some more things that are updated, but they had them by borough. They had more information that are there. They had some student testimonials. Like those things about the student experience are still useful. It's still helpful for families to go through it. And I'll just put that link there in the chat. But again, like whatever we can do to turn a family on to understanding CTE.NYC and like the resource that is for CTE, that's helpful. And those are the sorts of things that we want to try to push them towards.
Okay.
And Mr. or Mrs. Lynn, I'll just say that between July 15th and July 30th, you can check the CTE.NYC website and it will be available to, you'll see a section for parents and families and students, a section for schools, and a section for partners as well there.
Okay, click on that. So if there aren't any more questions, I mean, I truly have enjoyed this. I wish I can go way back and go to a CTE school. I really do. I just think it really, it's special when you could at a young age learn a career that you might be interested in, discover it, but also be connected to learning it through an internship or through mentorship. And having gone to Manhattan Business Academy with Mr. Smalls and participating on some of his young men on panels when I speak to the young men with a bunch of other professionals, sharing our stories of our journey. He does that with the women, with the girls as well. Again, this is another element that probably happens at all the other CTE schools where they really are exposing them to hear stories about people's journeys and because the journey changes. And so I just think it's just a tremendous opportunity, especially in today's world, and for those kids who are better with their hands, or more in HVAC. And there's some great careers and lucrative careers and entrepreneurship. Everyone needs a plumber. Everyone needs an electrician. And if you have an attraction to that, and learn it at a young age, it prepares you to get your mentorship, your internship, your certification, your apprenticeship, and that's so key in those fields. And you never know how to start, but by going to a CTE school, it gets it going earlier and really gets you to your ultimate goal a lot quicker.
Yeah, I even think of to what you were just saying, like we have a law program, so at John Brown High School, so students who want to become lawyers, right? They will go through this law program. Obviously, this program is preparing you for post-education as well, but students will now step into college with credits already, but also more prepared with the understanding of the industry itself, more prepared for what they need to know in college so that they're like, we've heard so many students in years past who were taking remedial courses in college. And these were zero credit courses taking up, their grants, right? Or their financial aid. So one of the purposes of this is to make sure that that doesn't happen again, and that you are going into college prepared, that you're not taking remedial courses that you have to pay for that are zero credits. And so by the time you're ready to complete college, you don't have any more financial aid, right? Then there's the other side of like things like CFM, Career and Financial Management, which is a part of our CTE course sequence. So students are learning now how to save, how to open up a bank account, how to invest. And then we know that like both for the teachers and the students, we need to make sure that we upskill everyone. So not all of our teachers may have started teaching 25 years ago, and so we need to upskill our teachers to make sure that what they're teaching is relevant. But then we also need to make sure that like things like when we're teaching our students investing, that when I was in high school, there was no such thing as like Robinhood or Acorn or Webull, right? I wasn't investing on an app, but students are able to like effectively do that now. And so in career and financial management, they learn about this stuff now so that they're prepared to make these decisions now and once they leave high school. So that's also an exciting part of CTE.
It's tremendous. I know that, again, I want to thank both of you. We would like to invite you again. Hope we don't have a glitch and we can really build this and build greater momentum, maybe in the summer, definitely in the fall, because I think this is a type of school or set of schools within the New York City Board of Ed um, that many kids can gravitate to. They just need to know about it.
For sure.
One other thing I'd like to bring up is that there's chances that 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds applying to high schools don't know what they're going to want to do for the rest of their life, but there is always great opportunity. You will learn so much at these CTE type schools that will be helpful for what collegiate life is like, that will be helpful for the workforce even if you don't go into that job field. When I was
Right.
at Brooklyn Tech, and Brooklyn Tech has majors, so effectively your ninth and 10th grade you take more core classes, then you apply through a major system that is very much like the high school application process. And every student will get a major, and you will not always get your first choice. And you rank the majors 1 through 12, and a centralized computer tells you which major you have. I ended up in software engineering. I did not know how to code. I wanted to be a teacher. My dad wanted me to do computer science. And I struggled, in the beginning of my junior year, but I really finally understood the logic behind programming, and I went on to like go to Hunter College and study teaching there. But the logic and the work that I learned about like how to take apart a problem and put together a solution from coding and from programming has helped me in every single job that I've had since then. And even now, when I do work with some of the developers of the My School site on the admissions team, like it was a shock to a lot of people that I could have conversations with a developer on how programming language works, right? Like that's not something that's expected for you to know as an admissions, project manager, but it is something that I did happen to know. And I just bring that up because I do know that sometimes families are afraid and they go, what if we take part in this program and their junior or senior year, they decide they don't want to? And my response is, isn't it better that they find out now in high school than in college when you're paying to take classes, right? They might find something that they absolutely love. They might find something that they don't totally know what they want. They're still getting that high school graduation academic core. They're also getting to see what it is like in the workforce before it is dependent on that livelihood, right? Before you need to be making that living wage and you are sort of unclear about the workforce. There are so many great skills that you learn there through those internships, externships. And I just try to like always speak to that because I think those are the parts that families are missing when they only think about 3 to 5 schools.
Great points. Yes.
Oh, great point. So again, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank you, Mari, and obviously Christian and everyone here. We recorded it. We're definitely going to share it, but we do want to, as I said earlier, want to invite you back because I think this is super in terms of
I look forward to
what
that.
you offer. So, any other closing remarks? The onus are on. I just think this falls in line with the work we're trying to do. Incorporating more career education into our academic education because it all goes hand in hand. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. And have a great evening. We'll continue next week. Next week, we'll have Family Academy #3. Our focus is going to be on parochial schools, known as Catholic schools. And then the following week will be our independent boarding and day schools. So we'll replicate something like this in the summer, but definitely in the fall. And thank you. Thank you. And again, thank you, Omari, and thank you, Christian. I really appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Feel free to call me at any time if you have any other questions. And I'm sure it'll be okay if we share your information as well.
100%.
Okay.
100%, definitely.
Yes, Christian.